It is no longer rumor, people. It's official. Bendis is back at Marvel. That's right, Brian Michael Bendis is coming back to Marvel Comics to write an Avengers story. Should we be worried? Should we not be worried? Yeah, we probably should be worried a little bit. But that doesn't mean the man didn't do some good work at one point in time before things all went horribly, horribly wrong. But regardless of that, let's get into the information we have in regards to the fact that Bendis is back. It's official. Brian Michael Bendis is back with Marvel Comics for new Avengers era. That's right, Marvel fans. Brian Michael Bendis, the man who defined an entire generation of Avengers storytelling, is back at the House of Ideas to lead the Earth's mightiest heroes into a bold new era. The lauded writer responsible for such titles as New Avengers and Ultimate Spider-Man took a step away some years ago to work exclusively for DC Comics and work on his own creator-owned projects. But with a milestone moment in Avengers history approaching, Bendis is coming home for what Marvel Comics promises to be the start of many projects. Now, here's the thing. The startups in the House of Ideas, Marvel is not in a great place these days. They are not doing things that would make most people interested. Their new Ultimate line is coming to an end. The only book that was really ever selling from that was Ultimate Spider-Man. Most people are not interested. They're still doing the whole race swapping, gender swapping stuff that nobody's interested in. Trying to have, the what's going on in the comics mirror what happens in the MCU, which is a really bad move. It's going bad. Now, Brian Michael Bendis is not the worst person they could get to bring back. He did do some really good work at a point in time. And I would be bemused if I don't state that here. Brian Michael Bendis did some fantastic work on Avengers. What he did is work with Avengers and stuff when he started off was really good. It was some of the best Avengers who was getting sales all along. Now, did I like everything he was doing with Avengers? No, there were certain things I had a problem with, but overall, it was actually really good. He was tying up stories. He was introducing new conflicts. He was changing things, keeping things fresh, keeping things interesting. There was a lot going on with what he was doing with Avengers that was getting a lot of people interested. So it was going on. Also, he was the man who created Miles Morales. Now, I will be perfectly honest with you. I don't know why Miles Morales exists, other than the fact that Brian Michael Bendis wanted to, as Young Ripper puts it, create Peter Darker. Because when Miles Morales started off, and as I said before, I say again, the only reason Miles Morales exists is because they wanted a race swap Spider-Man. That's a fact. But when it started off, right, it was an interesting story. Peter Parker from that alternate world had died. Miles Morales took over. People were initially interested. They were looking to see what was going on. It quickly went really badly when everybody realized that all Miles Morales was a cheap knockoff of Peter Parker. He didn't have any original villains. He didn't have any original thing. He was just basically doing that. I mean, even his Venom Blast is just basically something like a rip-off of what Spider-Woman could do. That's what it is. So it wasn't going over well with them, and then they kind of dragged them over into the main universe, which is another horrible mistake. But regardless of it, Bendis did do a lot of good work when he first started off. So there are things there to build on. Rumors about Bendis's return have been swirling for weeks, spurred on by Marvel Comics' coy solicitations for Avengers number 34, the 800th overall issue in the franchise's history, which promises a mysterious blockbuster creative team. But the publisher finally put an end to the speculation and confirmed that Brian Michael Bendis was contributing a story for Avengers number 34 along with Mark Bagley who previously worked with Bendis on titles such as Ultimate Spider-Man, and know this isn't a one-off, as both Marvel and Bendis confirm the upcoming story is just the start of what they have planned. So yeah, it's not going to be just a one thing, because the Avengers is basically Avengers 800, right? And it's they're really big on the return of Brian Michael Bendis. They're bringing back together the original Avengers team and all of that, all of it. But it's not just going to be a one and done. It's not just going to be a one and done. Apparently, Brian Michael Bendis is going to be coming back to do some work on some other books. Usually, when Brian Michael Bendis is working on something at Marvel, he usually works on roughly about sometimes 4 to 6 books at a time. If he decides to cut back on it, no, that might be something. Maybe if he cuts back and focuses on just like probably 2 or 3 titles, then he could. But usually he does about 4 to 6 titles at a point in time. That's kind of his wheelhouse. But if he cuts back, might get something out of that there. But there are other titles that he could work on right now. Daredevil, he could probably do, because I think they canceled Daredevil. I think they're bringing it back next year, but nobody's really excited for that. Brian Michael Bendis also created Jessica Jones. You haven't heard anything about her in however long. Maybe he could do some work with her, on that, do some street level heroes and stuff. I haven't heard anything about Iron Fist and Luke Cage in a good long time. I think the last I heard Luke Cage was the mayor in New York or something like that. I wasn't really interested in that storyline. If we could get back to something being interesting, might do a Young Avengers, even though Young Avengers to me has never really worked. I mean, they did call them champions at one time, but that still didn't work. Regardless of it, maybe he could do some work on that. There are titles that, Brian Michael Bendis could work on, because let's face it, Marvel needs a lot of help right now. Anyone remotely familiar with Marvel Comics in the 2000s knows Brian Michael Bendis. The writer became a modern legend with his run on New Avengers. Yeah, like I say again, I have to say, his work on Avengers did resonate with a lot of people. Other fans were brought in, people were enjoying it. It was doing a lot, which reinvigorated the classic hero theme for the new millennium. Bendis was also the mind behind some of Marvel Comics' biggest events of the 2000s, including House of M, Secret Invasion, and Dark Reign, featuring the iconic Dark Avengers. Now, here's the thing, House of M was an interesting run, and when that was done, he did a story to kind of close it up that was actually did some kind of thing to put it in that. But Secret Invasion, right? Secret Invasion. If you have only seen the MCU version of Secret Invasion, that's terrible, and you shouldn't even account with anything. Secret Invasion was basically the Skrulls taking, basically replacing heroes and people and stuff, and it was a very meticulously done thing that they did, right? In Avengers: Earth's Mightiest Heroes, they did cover that in a storyline, but I think had they had more time to flush it out properly, that could have been something. And again, like I always say, Avengers: Earth's Mightiest Heroes was cancelled way too early. That had more traffic. Had they actually given that some actual oomph, it could have worked, because it was a really good series that was building stuff with. But it did something. The Secret Invasion was one of a very interesting storyline. Also, Dark Reign, you got the Dark Avengers. Like I say, it brought in people who were interested. This was the kind of work he was doing that was actually putting butts in seats. People were actually going to comic shops to pick up these things because people were interested. Bendis wasn't just a powerhouse for the main Marvel Comics line. He was the writer for Ultimate Spider-Man, seen by many as the crown jewel of Marvel's original Ultimate line. Yeah, again, it kind of happened this time as well with the new Ultimate line that they've done, like it happened with the last time. Spider-Man was basically the crown jewel then and now when it comes to the Ultimate line. But we keep getting the same problem, right? The new Ultimate Spider-Man that they have, what drew fans in is that Peter Parker and Mary Jane are married, which is something people actually want and actually enjoy seeing, and they want to see that. But I haven't read the book myself, because I just kind of don't want to invest It's something that I know is not going to have a big payoff. But from people who I know and trust who have reviewed the book, I have heard some people say that, yes, it's good, but it's a little boring at times. Like, there are pages and pages and issues and stuff that happen where you don't see much of him as Spider-Man. Right? That was what went on with it. It's an interesting concept of Peter Parker, Spider-Man, now we call it Spider-Man in his 30s. It's an interesting concept. With Miles Morales, it was also an interesting concept because Peter Parker died in that universe. Miles Morales took over, and you were like, okay, you have this new Spider-Man character there. What's going to happen? What's going on? What's going to work? And fans were invested to see what was happening. But like I say, interest quickly dwindled when people realized it was just basically Peter Dacker, if I could put it that way. Miles had no original villains. He didn't have an original thing about it. It was just basically Peter Parker because he was smart. He was just that was it. It was just a carbon copy of Peter Parker, just with a different skin color. That was it. And a few different little things here and there, but not enough to make it up. And the only people who were still sticking around were the people who were like, oh, Miles Morales is Spider-Man, you know what you're talking about? And I could say that again. Miles Morales could never be Spider-Man for the sole reason of why he was created. That was it. But again, I will give credit where credit is due. Ultimate Spider-Man from Brian Michael Bendis did have some pull when it did initially begin. And again, his run on the Avengers at the time was done really well. So I cannot deny that at all. So what can people expect from Bendis now that he's back in the captain's chair? Marvel Comics kept details light, but the publisher did reveal that it could see Captain America, Thor, and Iron Man working together to stop Hydra's latest weapon of mass destruction, and that they'd be joined by fellow Avengers, both past and present. Other than that, Marvel Comics is keeping the cards close to its chest. But what's certain is that whatever Marvel has planned for the Avengers, it wants a seasoned pro like Brian Michael Bendis at the helm. Marvel fans know something is coming between the end of the Ultimate Universe and the strange teasers of Marvel Comics' upcoming summer event, Armageddon. It really looks like the publisher is laying the groundwork for a major moment in Marvel history. What better time to rope Brian Michael Bendis back in and see if he can work the same magic like he did with Marvel's previous epic game-changing eras. It's hard to tell what's on the horizon, but with a lauded writer like Brian Michael Bendis, fans be certain that it's going to be something truly transformative. Now, one of the things that Brian Michael Bendis did, he was kind of the guy that is responsible for these continuous events happening every year. He started to do that, and now it's become absolutely insufferable. You don't need an event every year. Everything. Look forward to this event. No, an event should be something that you build up to, and it could sometimes take 3 to 5 years to build up to it, to get that kind of momentum going, right? They didn't build up to one world on the doom, and it turned out to be as flat as a pancake, and that was one of the problems. But like I say, Brian Michael Bendis is one responsible for this, right? When he did, like I said, he did a lot of good work over at Marvel, but he did some things that weren't good. He was also the one responsible for bringing in what was entitled the Portland Mafia, basically a group of writers that guttiness, that started injecting their identity politics into comics, and it got really bad. I'm going to cover some of that in another video, but I'm just saying this is what's happening. And it got to the point when it came down to the end of Brian Michael Bendis' run, where people were just hoping he would leave. And then he went over to DC and made an absolute mess over there as well. So, like I say, he's coming back to Marvel. Bendis is basically back. He's going to be writing the Avengers, and they said, they have work, they have things that they're going to have him doing because, the Ultimate Universe is coming to an end and all kind of thing, and they have something coming up, and they most likely want him to work on it. He may very well go back to be writing, Avengers as well, and a few other things. It could happen. It could happen. Again, like I say, once he is doing something and he does it pretty good, we could get something out of it. and it could all work out there in regards to it. But regardless of what happens, the rumors were true. Bendis is back at Marvel. Should we be worried? Yeah, probably. Could it be good? We'll have to wait and see, because if he comes back and, he gets back to that, like I say, he's doing this probably like about 2 or 3 books, and he gets to focus and actually comes back with some fresh new ideas, it could be good. But if he comes back as burnt out Bendis, nah, that ain't going to work out well at all. And Marvel at this point needs all the help that they could get. Let me know your thoughts on this in the comments. If you have a different opinion, I'd love to hear it. If you like the video, hit that thumbs up. Subscribe if you haven't already. Ring the notification bell to be notified every time I put a new video. And I shall see you all next time. Take care.